So hi and welcome again to my video blog. Today I'm going to be talking about a touchy subject, which is success in transition. And if I say anything which you feel is offensive, please keep in mind that it's not my intention to offend anyone. I'm just voicing my opinions on this matter. So okay, since I came to realize there was something about my gender identity which was unlike most people, I did everything I could to enter in contact with transgender individuals over the internet and in real life so that I could learn from them and maybe make friends and everything. And I met all kinds of people. And it really seems to me that transition is not something easy, well obviously, but it's also not always something successful. A lot of young transsexuals do very well in their transition. They live their new lives very fully and they seem to do well, to be very happy, to be very well adapted and have boyfriends or girlfriends and live a very normal life and are more comfortable with their gender than they were before. But it seems that a lot of other transsexuals aren't actually doing as well, and some transsexuals transition and in the end up being more shy, going out less or not going out at all just like before, and maybe are kind of bitter about life. And well, I've met a lot of older transsexuals who are like that actually, and I don't want to make it sound like a prejudice, but it seems to me like there are a lot of older transsexuals that are like 40, 50, 60 that will say, oh yes, I am now much happier as a woman, but at the same time they'll be very bitter about things, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm happy as a woman, but I hate everyone, you know. But that has nothing to do with my transsexuality, of course not. And to some degree I feel that these people haven't succeeded as well as they could have, or as well as other people have, in that they don't really seem to be enjoying their lives that much, so maybe something went wrong along the way. And well, why am I talking about that? Well, because to me it's very important that my transition should be a success. I feel that if it doesn't improve my life in any way, then there just isn't any point in doing it. And well, that's what I was talking about in my video about doubts, basically, that I want to try things out to figure out if it's for me, but if I realize it's not, if I realize it actually makes things worse in the long run, then I won't do it. But I also want to say that it's normal that transition is not an easy process for anyone. If you're transgender and you're in your transition, it's normal, especially at first, that things aren't easy. And well, it's not meant to be easy in the short term, it's meant to make things better in the long term, and I think it's the objective that matters in a sense. But anyways, what I'd like to talk about is what kind of factors can influence the success of a transition. And well, one of the most obvious ones is, well, maybe the amount of support you get. If you have a lot of support, a lot of friends who help you, if your parents or family is very open about this, then it might just help you a lot and make things a lot easier for you than for other people. But unfortunately, a lot of transsexuals, a lot of transgender people are quite lonely. They don't have that many friends, and it's very rare that family is actually supportive of this and encouraging the individual to pursue this goal. So what else is there really? Well, there's money, of course. If you have a lot of money, it's a lot easier to get everything done quickly and to change your life completely, to relocate somewhere else, to live without a job for some time while you're transitioning, get all the surgeries you want. So money is another factor that can make your transition easier or more difficult. But I think the primary factor out there is your age, the age at which you transition. And that's something that I feel people don't really want to talk about, but the younger you are when you transition, the more likely you are to succeed. That's what I believe, actually, from my own observations, and well, it's just logical, really. When you're my age, for example, I'm 21, I don't have a family, I don't have a girlfriend or boyfriend, I live with my mom still by choice. I don't have a car, I don't really have a job yet because I'm not on the job market, I haven't graduated yet. Well, I do have summer jobs and all that, and part-time jobs, but I haven't been working at the same company for 10 years, you know. But when you're older, your life situation is not as flexible. You might have a family, a wife, children, a house, a lot of obligations. You might have been working at the same company for 15 years, and at some point you might not be able to change job, change career, and if you transition you might lose the wife, lose the family, lose the children in some cases, which makes things a lot harder. And well, not only that, but we also know that hormones are more effective the younger you are. So if you're younger, you have more chance of becoming passable. That means being a convincing woman in terms of your appearance. And well, a lot of older transsexuals will tell you, oh, it doesn't matter, you know, what matters is feeling well with yourself, you know, being yourself and being comfortable with that. And well, if you can be more comfortable as a woman, that's what matters, yes, but it's very hard to be comfortable if people are making fun of you or rejecting you. And in some cases it can force you to change your life in ways that may not be good for you. Because for example, if you're transsexual and you're not passing very well, you might be tempted, for example, to go live in a gay neighborhood in your city, for example, where you feel people are more open-minded, but in a way you're sort of participating in some kind of ghettoization. You know, you're living in a special community because you can't live in a more ordinary neighborhood because you're afraid of people and their reactions and all that, and you might start avoiding some public places and all that, and I don't think that's really good for an individual in the end. So yeah, I think passability is a very important factor in the success of your transition, because honestly, the way I feel, you meet people on the street, you don't even talk to them most of the time, probably, but in the first half a second that they see you, they classify you as male or female instinctively. And if they don't instinctively perceive you as female or as your desired gender, then they won't treat you in the way you desire to be treated. If people perceive you as male, they won't really treat you as female. Maybe if they're open-minded, they'll do their best, but even there, it might still not be exactly what you want, you know? Because I don't think that being treated sort of like a girl by open-minded people is really the same thing as being treated as a woman in general by people who perceive you as a woman. So I believe passability is very important, and personally, if I'm not confident enough with my passability after say a year or a year and a half on hormones, I will definitely take the steps necessary to get, for example, facial feminization surgery. This is a surgery which is very expensive, in which they reconstruct your face to look feminine, and if you get this done by some of the best surgeons out there, it's pretty much guaranteed that you will be convincing afterwards. So I think it's a worthwhile investment for transsexuals who aren't confident with their appearance. But anyways, I'm mentioning all these obstacles, all these things that can affect your success in transition. But some people might say, well, difficulties aren't always bad. you know, you encounter difficulties in your life, in your transition, and in a way it can be good because as a transsexual you have to work to reach your goals, and that sort of makes you more courageous, it makes you a stronger person, it shapes your personality in a positive way. And I'll agree, that's true. Transsexuals are usually more extroverted after they've done their transition and more comfortable in society when things go well. But I don't think difficulties are always a good thing, and obstacles in general. Someone said, I don't know who, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And I think that's something that could be true of transsexuals that succeed. The obstacles you encounter make you stronger. But at some point, if there are too many obstacles and you're depressed and you lack the determination, these obstacles could very well affect you in very negative ways. I think there is something at some point, there's such a thing as too much difficulty, and if the weight of all these obstacles is crushing you, then it might shape your personality in a very negative way. You might become depressed, have a burnout, become suicidal, and all those things. So I think that all the pressure that society can put on us can have some very negative consequences, and that's in the end what affects the success of a transition. But I don't want to say that some people fail at transition. I think that would be pretty cruel to say. But I think it takes a lot of strength and should probably be taken slowly and with the appropriate care. So, to be honest with you, if I was 50-year-old and I had a family, I'm not sure that I would transition. I'm not sure that I would have the strength to do that, because in most cases it seems that men, or transsexual women, sorry, that transition at that age, well, most often end up losing the family, and you can see that it affects them. You can see it's painful to them, and I can understand the kind of pain that would represent for someone, and that's partly why I'm doing it now while I am still young. I feel that I'm basically saving myself a lot of trouble, possibly saving a future potential family a lot of trouble, and hopefully making my life better in the end. But yeah, what to do when things get too difficult? I think it's important to have support. Transsexuals should have friends that understand them, and in a way shouldn't have friends that don't support them. I think if your friends don't support you and you're transitioning, you might as well, if they don't understand, you might as well cut all contact with these people, because they're not helping you, they're hurting you in a way, you know. And you might want to get into some associations for transsexuals, for transgender people, and talk with people in some kind of group discussions, for example, because I think it's important to have support and to not feel alone in this, because I think that's sort of the main thing out there. Solitude makes people depressed. People have a need for social contact, and if your transition isolates you, then you might end up feeling very, very lonely and very depressed, and well, some people even get suicidal from being too depressed. So anyways, it's a difficult topic. I don't really have that many friends that support me, to be honest, but I'm glad, well, I mean in real life, but I'm glad I have people on the internet who voice their support from time to time, and a few transsexuals all over the world, a few transsexual friends which I can chat with and exchange with. And in a way I think that the internet might actually be one of the new contributors to the success of transsexuals nowadays. You can get a lot of information online, you can get a lot of support, things that you couldn't do before. People in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s didn't have access to all this information, and all these communities online that we have now, and if it wasn't for the internet, I probably would never have come to terms with my own transsexuality. I might have been one of those who transitioned very late in their life and who have it a lot more difficult. And to be honest with you, even if I'm 21, I still wish I could have started sooner. I still wish I could have done it at 18. And sometimes I see some transsexuals who miraculously obtain hormones when they were 14 and now they're undistinguishable from genetic females, and I feel, oh my god, I wish I could have done it at 14. Those regrets are obviously useless for me because I can't go back in time, but I think it's nice to see that some people are allowed to transition very early because they get to have somewhat of a more normal adolescence and all that. In my adolescence, I was very lonely, and I feel that if I could have voiced my issues to other people and started expressing myself sooner, I might have had more friends who knew me for who I was and who supported me maybe, and I could have transitioned earlier and have had a more normal adolescence. But maybe this blog will help some people out there who are still questioning themselves to come to terms with their own issues, or at least to think about them. And so yeah, I hope all those things I said will help some people to think about those issues and to perhaps get some help if they need it. Because, well, being transsexual and being all alone through all this is not easy. And if you need help, you should get it. You should talk to people, talk to organizations. In Montreal City, there are a number of organizations that help transgender people, and I myself am just beginning to use them, actually, to get in contact with people, something I should have done some time ago. So that's it for today. I hope nobody got offended by what I said, and I hope that if you're transitioning, that your transition will be a success. So have a nice day.